Yo, what's good? It's your boy Jan. We back with another video. Feel me. Today we got Jimmy High Roller. Are we witnessing the greatest peak in NBA history? Are we? Now, the thumbnail, you know what I'm saying? My GOAT, Jokic. I think it's my first video reacting to Jimmy High Roller. You know, obviously I know who he is, but I haven't been reacting to his videos. But I know who he is. He's a legendary YouTuber, you know what I'm saying? Putting great basketball content out there with all the stats and stuff like this, you know. But I saw the thumbnail. I had my GOAT Jokic. I had to check it out, you know what I'm saying? I had to check it out. Somebody gotta do it. Yeah, he gotta do it. Okay, I said the lyrics completely wrong. But you know what I'm saying? I had to do it. So are we witnessing the greatest peak in NBA history? Check it out.
What does the best version of the best basketball player we've ever seen look like? Many fans would point out Michael Jordan from 1988 to 1991 as the absolute best version of a player they've ever seen. LeBron from 2010 to 2013 might also be the best version of any player in the game's history. But there have been a lot of great players who have had a lot of incredible seasons. 2000 Shaq, 2016 Curry. Maybe your choice is MVP and Defensive Player of the Year Hakeem in 94, or 03 Duncan, or maybe Bird in 86. But maybe a better way to visualize this question is this: a chart of the 100 greatest three-year peaks in modern NBA history, with box plus minus on the y-axis and win shares per 48 on the x-axis. The further up a player is, the more productive and efficient
they got Porzingis in that bit.
The further right, the larger their impact was on their team's winning. And even towards the bottom of this chart, you'll find some great names like Ray Allen at 78, DeMarcus Cousins at 66. Keep going up and you'll find perennial all-stars and franchise players like Jason Tatum, who is currently in the 46th highest peak over the last 40
got
plus
PG,
seasons.
Jason Tatum.
Paul George just above him,
Kobe.
and Vince Carter at 40. Now, this isn't some perfect method to measure players. Most advanced metrics tend to undervalue defense and overvalue offense. But overall, this gives us a great picture of how impactful players were at the peak of their powers relative to the rest of the league. And at this point, we reach all-time great peaks. The guys who can carry an entire team. Luka at 15, Magic Johnson at 11, Stephen Durant at 7 and 6, James Harden and his best three-season stretch just ahead of them, Giannis with the 4th highest individual peak, and head and shoulders above everyone else
Michael Jordan.
Almost identical peak numbers are Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Clearly the two best peaks we've ever seen. Until Nikola
Let's go! Jokic, the GOAT! Let's get him, man!
We've ever seen.
I knew it!
Until Nikola
Greatest of all time!
And completely blew the lid off of just how valuable one player can be to his team.
Let's get it, the GOAT!
Jokic the best version of any basketball player ever?
Yes, sir. A WB by Jimmy High Roller. Oh.
Today's video is brought to you by SeatGeek.
The ads. I get that money.
How do you know when a player is truly impacting the game? They can put up great numbers, but that doesn't always translate to winning basketball. You can use the eye test, but our eyes can be deceiving. However, there is one surefire way to tell. And that's when a player is so important and so valuable that their team is utterly lost without them. Every time they step out of the game, everything falls apart. We saw this with LeBron at points in his career. We've seen this many times with Steph. And just a couple days ago, we saw this with Nikola Jokic. In their recent matchup against the Warriors, Jokic started the game, and the Nuggets got out to a 6-point lead before he checked out for the first time with 1:32 left in the first quarter. Now pay attention to the score and the time left on the clock. By the time Jokic re-entered the game, 5 minutes later, the Nuggets were down 5 points. Jokic helped the Nuggets overcome that deficit, and by the time he checked out again at the end of the third, the Nuggets were back up by 5. By the time he returned to the game, just 2.5 minutes later, the Nuggets were down 3 points. Jokic played the rest of the game, and the Nuggets ended up winning by 4. Jokic was on the bench for just 8 minutes of this game, was a net plus 42 points, and the Nuggets won this game by just 4. And that pretty much sums up how important Nikola Jokic is on a basketball court. Pair the impact he makes on his team's success with stat lines that make you question everything you've ever known about basketball, and you have yourself a player who is beginning to enter conversations that some fans aren't quite ready to have. Are we witnessing the highest peak in the history of the NBA? Some people think
Greatest
so.
of all time,
We're now
man.
going on 5 seasons of this guy being the best player on the planet. And despite 3 MVPs in 4 seasons, the man has somehow found a way to take his game to even
Should be
another
4,
level.
but,
Is there
you know,
still a gap between
I was trying to
Jokic and
cheat.
the highest peaks in basketball history?
Embiid.
Or is this version of Jokic peaking
Flopper.
higher than any player we have ever seen before? Well, there's a pile of evidence that suggests he is. So far this season, when Jokic is on the floor, the Nuggets score 31 more points per 100 possessions, which means Jokic is single-handedly the difference between the Nuggets being one of the best offenses in NBA history and one of the worst.
Damn.
But the absence of any great offensive player will wreak havoc on a team. It should be expected that a system will struggle when you take out their most valuable and important player. From 2015 to 2017, the 3-year offensive peak of Steph Curry's career, the Warriors scored 15 more points per 100 possessions when he was on the court versus when he wasn't. And Steph's offensive value throughout this 3-year stretch had become the gold standard in the modern NBA. According to Cleaning the Glass, which has a database that dates back to 2004, no other player over the last 21 seasons has been able to match Steph's offensive impact. LeBron came relatively close from 2008 to 2010, elevating the Cavs' offense by 13.5 points per 100 possessions. Peak Chris Paul and Steve Nash were the catalyst to 2 incredible offenses. But even amongst offensive juggernauts, Steph was in a league of his own. Until Jokic hit his peak.
Yes,
He
sir.
has been the most impactful offensive player over the last 2 decades, and it's not even remotely close. Over the last 3 seasons, the Nuggets scored 23.3 more points per 100 possessions when Jokic is on the court. That is a larger gap than most starting fives have over their bench unit. Jokic is making this big of an impact by himself. And we already knew that he was approaching, if not already at the level of some of the best, most impactful players in NBA history. But to really enter the conversation, Jokic first had to do what every all-time great must: prove that he could be this good over and over and over again. That his dominance transcended who you put around him, and that his impact wasn't some 3-year abnormality. And he's now done that. He's way past the point of skepticism, and now entering the point where we have almost built a tolerance to his absolutely mind-bending stat lines. Basketball Reference cites a season where a player achieves a box plus minus of 10 or more as an all-time great season. As they put it, think peak Jordan or LeBron. And only 16 players in the history of the NBA have achieved this mark for a single season. Only 4 of these 16 players have achieved this mark in multiple seasons. Those players being LeBron, Jordan, Giannis, and Chris Paul. Nikola Jokic has a box plus minus of 10 or more for his entire career. Easily the highest BPM of any player in NBA history. In fact, there have only been 8 individual seasons where a player logged a box plus minus of at least 12.
Wow.
LeBron James did it once back in 2009, the most productive and high usage season of his entire career. Michael Jordan did it twice, once back in 1988, arguably the greatest individual season in NBA history and the best statistical season of his career, and again in 1991. This season, Nikola Jokic is on path to accomplishing this feat as well, joining an exclusive club with the 2 greatest players of all time. But he's been in the club for a while now, because he also did it last season, and the season before that. And the season before that. And the season before that. 5 straight seasons of basketball, equal or better than the very best seasons of LeBron and Jordan. But you don't have to seek out metrics to see how Jokic has mastered the game.
Not for real. Now look at this boy, man.
On the court,
The passing, the IQ, the rebounding, the shooting, everything, bro. It's just so majestical about him, bro. Oh my gosh.
Where Jokic can't pick apart a team. Near the rim, Jokic is virtually automatic. He's got the size and strength to abuse even the best big men in the league. Because as everyone was tailoring their game to spacing and athleticism and speed, Jokic has gone the other direction. The size of a true big with footwork and touch around the rim that most defenders in the NBA today have no idea what to do with. For most big, punishing centers, this is the extent of their expertise. A game built to dominate around the rim. There's 2 counters for players like this. Try to push their game away from the rim, or collapse and force them to make a play.
Look at that, 5 on
have been
him.
relatively effective since the beginning of time.
Tell me when was the last time a player had 5 plays on him, bro? Come on, man.
As the best
That's why he's the greatest of all time. Look, 4 people guarding him, bro.
Defenders at Jokic doesn't work.
All eyes on him. 4 people, bro.
And make you
Look at that.
with a 3 ball. The man is sick. If anything, this is probably his preference. Send help. We wanted the 3 anyways. So as of late, teams have tried option number 2, force his game away from the rim. And this has worked in the past. As we saw in last year's playoffs, teams forced Jokic to shoot the outside shot, and he struggled quite a bit. 26% on 4 threes a game in the postseason.
Right, but this year he's what, 50-something percent?
Well, at least it was. Because this season, Jokic is shooting 50% from 3 on 4.2 attempts per game. 50%. The second most efficient three-point shooter in the league among all players shooting at least 4 threes a game. So he can crush you around the rim, and you don't even want him to get the ball down there. But he's now one of the most efficient three-point shooters in the league, so we can't let him operate however he wants out there. So let's play him close. Put a big body on him, deny the passing lanes, and get physical. Again, a tactic that worked against Jokic about as well as any other. Except that doesn't work either, because Jokic also has the ability to put the ball on the floor and go downhill, which shouldn't be possible for a guy his size, but he does it. And once he gets to the middle of the floor, well, now you've lost. In the NBA, a player's gravity is a concept that has really become one of the most valuable things to possess. This is what offensive gravity looks like. When Jokic gets to this spot, the defense completely sinks in and bends however he wants it to. From here, he becomes the most lethal offensive weapon the game has ever seen, with the size, IQ, and skills to do whatever he wants. From this spot, there really isn't anything preventing Jokic from at least getting the shot that he or his team wants. Again, the best passer and playmaker in the league, so he'll find the open man if and when you close on him. Give him space, and he's capable of hitting the shot all day long. Or maybe he'll just put his back to the basket and back you into oblivion while you question if all that time you spent.
No, not against my Cavaliers.
Peak Jokic doesn't really have any weaknesses on offense.
Hey,
at the moment,
I mean, only on defense though. Defensively, he's not the best, but
way of stopping him, it looks like
his offense makes up for it, bro.
Way to slow him down. And although this can be said about a few players who hit all-time high peaks, there may not be another player who is as consequential to their team and its success as Nikola Jokic is. So far this season, Jokic touches the ball 113 times per game. That's any time he receives a pass or grabs a rebound. A mark that leads the NBA by a country mile. But the crazy part is that the Nuggets only have 100 possessions per game this season, which means on average, Jokic touches the ball not just every single Nuggets possession, but multiple times on several possessions. In fact, since the NBA introduced tracking data back in 2014, here are some all-time great players and how involved they were in their team's system throughout their 3-year peak, how many touches per possession they were getting. And across the board, all of them are floating between 0.6 and 0.8 touches per team possession, with LeBron, Harden, and Luka carrying the heaviest load of anyone. Luka even approaching a 1-to-1 touch-to-possession ratio throughout the last 3
Luka
seasons.
different, bro.
The Mavericks needing him to be involved in nearly every possession. And still, Jokic is on a whole nother level, where he is being utilized on virtually every single possession in every single game for 3 straight seasons. So not only does Jokic statistically contribute more to his team's winning, the load he is burdened with dwarfs even the greatest high-impact players over the last decade. Jokic isn't just the most important piece in Denver's offense, he is Denver's offense. Which brings us to the one glaring pitfall for Jokic's case as truly the highest peak of any player ever. Defense. A solid defensive player at his best and a net negative player at his worst. And this is the one factor that may prevent him from peaking higher than anyone else. There's 2 sides of the ball. He's the best we've ever seen on one side, and he's okay on the other side. Meanwhile, there have been many great players that have been incredible on both ends. Mike, LeBron, Kareem, Duncan, Kobe, Hakeem, even Shaq and Bird were great defensive players at the peak of their powers. Jordan was almost as impactful on offense as Jokic is, while being one of the best defensive players in the league at his peak. Same goes with LeBron. And because most advanced metrics neglect defense or measure it incorrectly, the impact they had on the game doesn't quite translate to the numbers we see on the back end. For example, this season, even the best all-in-one metric, estimated plus-minus, has Jokic in the 92nd percentile on defense, with an EPM of plus 1.4, ahead of players like Drew Holiday and Jason Tatum. This same metric has peak DPOY candidate LeBron at a defensive EPM of just plus 1.2, which is worse defensively than Jokic this season. And it doesn't take an analyst to know Jokic and 2013 LeBron are worlds apart on the defensive end. Where Jokic gets the benefit from virtually every metric we look at, some other players may not. And I don't know if unprecedented offensive mastery is enough to overcome the fact that Jokic is considerably worse on defense than others are. At least, I don't think so. But when I actually watch Jokic play, it's not the metrics, but my eyes that tell me he's influencing and impacting the game just as much as anyone I've ever seen. It feels a bit weird to put Jokic in the same conversation with a peak Jordan or a peak LeBron, two players who have essentially been levitating above everyone else. As valuable as Jokic is, I witnessed a man carry second-rate teams to the finals over and over and over. And contending with the greatest player of all time is a task that no one has ever been able to pull off. But everything, from the metrics to the eye test, says he is truly that caliber of player right now.
Yep.
The man has been
Greatest
the
of all
best player
time
in the world for half a decade. So ask yourself, how many players in NBA history have been the best player for more than 2, maybe 3 years at a time? There has been a lot
It's
of
rare.
guys who've worn the crown, but how many held on to it for extended periods?
Yep.
The list isn't very long. Kareem, Bird, Magic, Jordan, Shaq, Duncan, LeBron, maybe 6 or 7 players in the league's history? Well, whatever list you came up with, Jokic is now on it. And he isn't just the best player on the planet today. He is one of the best versions of any player
in
ever.
history. Hey man, W bit by Jimmy High Roller. Hey man, Jokic is the greatest player of all time. You know what I'm saying? He's the best of all time. I've been saying it for a long time. You know what I'm saying? But hey man, I mean, the only thing that hinders like Jokic, like I guess overall, from people seeing him as a great player is his defense, I think. But I don't know. I think it depends. But for the most part, his offense is like the best of all time in my opinion, bro. Like, obviously, I'm not talking about like points per game and stuff like that. I'm talking about like how effective he is for his team, like how much the team needs him. Because I've seen Nuggets games, bro. Jokic is out of the court, or games where he doesn't play, bro. That offense is trash. Like Murray, he can't do nothing, bro. Like Murray is nobody, bro, without Jokic. Gordon is nobody without Jokic. Michael Porter Jr. is nobody without Jokic. Excuse me. Jokic turns mid players into all-stars. And he turns all-stars into superstars. You know what I'm saying? And he turns trash players into mid. And you know what I'm trying to say, right? And then when Jokic comes on, bro, it's like nobody can stop that offense. Now, defensively, like I said already, that's the only liability about Jokic is his defense. He's not the best defender, but he isn't the worst. He plays some defense, but he's not the most athletic where he's gonna block every chase down layup or whatever. You know what I'm saying? He's not gonna be jumping every play and stuff like that, you know, but he is the best player in the NBA currently and for the past 5 years or so. And he's not gonna slow down. He's only 29, I believe. He's got at least a solid 5 to 7 more years in, especially with his body build, where he doesn't have to be athletic, right? Is that the right word? Athletic? Because he doesn't even run a lot. Like, he jogs, gets the ball, looks, scanning around, passes the ball. He gets physical. I guess that can hinder his longevity. But I mean, bro, I don't see him slowing down I don't think he's gonna play for 10 more years. I feel like 5 more years and he's gonna be done. Cause you know he doesn't care about basketball, right? Obviously it's a joke. Obviously, if he didn't care, he wouldn't be in the NBA right now. You know what I'm saying? But hey man, W bit by Jimmy High Roller. Leave a comment down below. What do you guys think about this video? Do you think Jokic is the best of all time or not?